Harihi, Harihi, Harihi Om Tats. Jai Guru. Shuddho Buddho Vimukta Shrudi Shikhara Giram Mukhyata Atparya Bhumi Yasma Jatam Samastam Jagadidam Amrdat Vyapya Sarvam Sthitoya Yasyam Sham Shavataraihi Suranaravanajairekshitam Sarvametad Tam Bhumanam Mukundam Hridigatamamalam Krishnameva Prapadye Tam Bhumanam Mukundam Hridigatamamalam Krishnameva Prapadye Madhya Hridaya Kashe Sadanandamayo Guru Udetu Satatam Samyak Swahatmananda Prabodhakaha. Hari, Hari, Hari Om Tats. Jai Guru. We shall now take up the joint recitation of the auspicious monosyllable Omkara 3 times. By so doing, I would like every one of you to have what? An all-world permeation, the whole earth permeation. It is possible with the human mind to reach anywhere you want. Interlock your fingers and put them on your lap. Sit comfortably erect. Close your eyes. Open the mouth and the heart. Join me. Harihi, Harihi. Today we will change the verse for our joint recitation. We will go to the 7th verse, not the 8th one, because it has got greater relevance to the question that Arjuna has raised. He is again asking Krishna, Yat Shreya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Sunishchidam. He says, what will bestow Shreyas on me? What will bestow Shreyas on me? Shreyas means supreme felicity. Felicity. The supreme felicity cannot come from the sensory objects. They cannot come from any object at all. All the objects will always remain where they are outside. Nothing is going to enter your inside. So the felicity that we are looking for has necessarily to be inward, subjective, not material but spiritual. What is that felicity? He is inquiring. How can it be achieved by me? So Arjuna's inquiry right from the start was Shreyas and not prayas. Prayas means whatever is sensorily pleasant and naturally short-living also. So we will go back to the verse number 7. Karpanya dosho bhagata swabhavaha.
Karpanya dosho bhagata swabhavaha.
See, the same Karpanya dosha has not left Arjuna. After listening to the entire second chapter, which really means the whole of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is not able to outlive his narrowness of mind. Then what should be your state? What should be the measure of narrowness each one of you has? This is a time for introspection, self-examination. Karpanya dosho bhagata swabhavaha.
Karpanya dosho bhagata swabhavaha.
Pritchami tvam.
Pritchami tvam.
Dharma sammudha cheta.
Dharma sammudha cheta.
Pritchami tvam.
Pritchami tvam.
Dharma sammudha cheta.
Dharma sammudha cheta.
Yashreyasyad.
Yachneyasyat.
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Shishyasteham.
Shishyasteham.
Shadhimam tvam prapannam.
Shadhimam tvam prapannam.
Yachreyasyad.
Yachreyasyad.
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Shishyasteham.
Shishyasteham.
Shadhimam.
Shadhimam
tvam prapannam.
Tvam prapannam.
Nishchitam bruhitanme. Arjuna wants Krishna to decisively, very clearly, conclusively tell him wherein lies his shreyas. He is in the battlefront. Unfortunately, he was not able to retain his weapons. He placed them down. He was unable to stand. He sat. And then he was listening to what Krishna was saying. After listening to Krishna, certainly there was a great change. After initially listening to Krishna's 23 words in 2 verses, all his tears stopped. He raised himself from the emotional, mental level to the intelligential, rational level. Standing firmly on that level, he started raising some pertinent questions. That is what has brought Bhagavad Gita. I understand that I should fight. I am prepared also in a way. But the difficulty is, and how can I fight? How? That how is very important. Because no human mind will allow to fight a grandfather who has nourished him, who has brought him up. And there is no ill will, dislike, or any kind of a difficulty between the two. The grandfather is still loving Arjuna, Yudhishthira and the others. He is also blessing them for victory. Such a grandfather, how can he fight? Fight is possible only when there is enmity between the two fighters. Here there is no enmity, either on the part of Arjuna or on the part of Bhishma. Still Bhishma is the commander-in-chief right in front. How can he penetrate into the army without confronting him? Can you imagine the crisis? Can you think of a greater conflict in human life? Then the next is his own teacher, from whom he has imbibed all the fighting skills. And now he has to use those skills against the very teacher for whom he has only respect, And for him, that is for Arjuna and the others, the teacher has only love and benediction. Imagine this. Arjuna recognized that he had to fight. He was preparing for the war. It was not unmeditated or uncontemplated upon. He has come with additional resources to fight. But the fact remains that this is a fight against his own kith and kin, against his own teacher and grandfather. What is the way to contain the mind, to steady the intelligence? He wanted something very, very specific and great, as a result of which the mind will become poised and the intelligence will become stable. This is not a usual war at all. At all. Just see the crisis in the mind of Arjuna. Krishna spoke elaborately. He introduced an altogether new subject actually. What is that subject? The subject of spiritual wisdom. That was the only point which Arjuna lacked, and which alone would be able to save Arjuna from the crisis. Nothing other than spiritual wisdom, the wisdom of the soul, would have the capacity to enlighten, empower and stabilize Arjuna's mind. That is why he took up the discussion. So from the war field, it has now gone to what? A spiritual field. The questions are spiritual, the answers are spiritual. The conflict, if at all again, will be spiritual. See, I can discuss Gita and take verse after verse. I don't propose to do it. Gita is only a medium for our discussion. But I am talking to you. It is a Satsang for you. A global Satsang, as we have named it. And my role is to penetrate into your mind and intelligence and generate introspection there. Introspection on what? All of you are capable of introspecting, and you do introspect, but you introspect over secular matters, professional matters, familial matters, societal matters. All of them are sensory in character. They are concerning the sensory objects of the world, every one of which is perishable. So however much you may introspect over the sensory objects of the world, the perishability is not going to be resolved. Your body is already perishable, mind too, intelligence too, ego too. And you are living in a perishable world. All your interactions are with perishable things. So the perishability will only increase by interactions. At the same time, you cannot escape life. There is no other earth where we can go. We only have 5 senses, one body, mind, intelligence and ego. Keeping all these with us, is it possible for us? Is it possible for us to overcome or overwhelm or transcend or sublimate or what? Evenize the whole world. Can I be spiritual in this world and live in a spiritual manner? It is true that I am interacting with the objects, but I, the interactor, am not an object. The world is an object. My eyes and ears are object. My body is an object. But the I in me is not an object. It is the subject. The interaction is taking place inside the body. All the interactions are inward and subjective. Inward and subjective. It is in the inner hemisphere. That means it is not in the material or physical plane. If this is so, can I not spiritualize my whole interaction? Can I not spiritualize it? Rather than getting materialized by the objects of the world. You are not the body. You are not the body. Therefore, you are not matter. You are not energy. The entire world is material, energial. Matter is being converted into energy. Energy is being transformed into matter. Interconventions of matter and energy are constantly going on in the world. But you are neither matter nor energy. You are something entirely different. That is why we call it spiritual. Our inner presence is spiritual. Our mind is its expression. Intelligence also, ego also. If this is the truth of your personality, where is the question of your being materialized at any point of time by virtue of your life and interactions? So, can you have a clarity of thought by virtue of which you will say, I am spiritual, I will continue to be spiritual no matter what my body, senses and others do. I am I. I am I. I am I. That I is the spiritual subject. All the rest are the material objects. My interaction with the objects will never be able to alter my spiritual nature. Can I hold on? Can you hold on to this realization? The process and pursuit by which you can pursue this realization, embody it, is the mento-intellectual pursuit. Whether you are in the secular field or in the spiritual field, mento-intellectual nature of the pursuit is never going to change. Mind and intellect, they themselves are not matter. Then where is the question of your becoming material or physical at all? So Krishna struck an altogether new dimension in his talk. He clearly said, Vedavinashinam nityam yayenam ajam avyayam katham sa purushav partha kam ghadayati hantikam. Arjuna, the moment you know this inner, imperishable, undying, unborn presence called the soul, there is no question of fighting or causing another to fight. There is no question of any action at all. The soul by its very nature is all-pervading, omnipresent. Can an omnipresent entity, if I can call it an entity, ever move? Where will it move? Where will it vibrate? How can there be action possible? If at all activity and actions are there, they are only imaginary, as in dream. A man is lying asleep. He dreams he has gone to Washington. Which he has gone? The man who lies there, he has gone. Where was the Washington? Which Washington did he go to? By which body he travelled? Which was the earth on which he moved or the air in which he flew? All are imaginations. The moment you wake up from your dream, none of the dream materials and factors will be there before you. So you can have activity like dream, imaginary, speculative. In reality, the I does not act. It cannot act. Action is done by the body. Action is done by the senses. Maybe by the mind, maybe by the intelligence, maybe by the ego, but not by the I. Veda vinashinam nityam yayenam ajam avyayam. Understand the I to be nitya, aja, unborn, avyaya, interminable, inexhaustible. That knowledge will be a full answer for all your activity and interactions. Everything has its finale in knowledge, not in action. Every day, for half your waking duration, you are asleep. Asleep. What is that sleeping I? Does it act? What about the 16 years that preceded when immense activity was going on? All those activities with their resultant outcomes, do they affect the sleeping person? Any of the activity, what action or what effect does it have on the sleeping eye? The eye sleeps alone, nakedly, alone, singularly. It is not connected to the body. It is not connected to the mind. It is not linked with the ego, much less with the world. Yet it sleeps where nobody knows. It's an experience you cannot deny. If there is an eye, the eye is the sleeping eye. In the waking, it is all mixed up. You have a body, you have a mind, you have an intelligence, you have an ego, you have the world around. That is all in waking. So the eye seems to be related to there. Related to. The real and the pure eye is in sleep. It remains there. It remains there. Absolutely intact. A sleeping man doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything. He is not bothered by anything. Maybe a dear one has died in the other room, but the sleeping man does not know about it. And how many hours do you sleep? Half the waking duration. Can you forget this sleep? Now you have to know what is this sleeping eye. It is I after all. It is not another, it is myself. That I you know. When you are able to know it, all your problems with activity and interaction will vaporize like mist before the sun rays. This is what he said. Why he said it? Because Arjuna wanted Shreyas. Standing in the battlefield, confronted by both the armies, he was unable to steer his mind. Krishna says the answer is to rise above the body, above the mind, above the intelligence, above the ego, above the world, and realize the transcendental presence which can never be implicated by anything whatsoever. Vedavinashinam nityam yayena majamavyayam katham sa purusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Naturally, what should Arjuna focus on? Should he focus in the war, or should he focus in the knowledge which Krishna presents so magnificently, alluringly? It's a very great question, my dear souls. There cannot be a better listener to Krishna than Arjuna was. So you cannot claim a status superior to Arjuna's. I would like every one of you to raise the same question as Arjuna did. Arjuna is wiser now. He is also humbler. So he doesn't charge Krishna, saying that you are saying something mingled, intermixed. You seem to be saying, he says. Seem to be. Vyamishrena iva vakyena buddhim mohayasi iva me. The word iva is very important. To me it appears that you are presenting mingled statements, intermixed statements. I am not saying they are, but to me they appear to be. See how humbler he has become and how discreet he is speaking. Vyamishrena iva vakyena buddhim mohayasi iva me. You are trying to delude my intelligence. This is what appears to be. I am not saying that you are really doing. My mind and intelligence are still in such a manner that they cannot think anything beyond. I have not got the clarity that I look for. I asked you, Krishna, very clearly, Yat Shreyasyan Nishchidam Bruhidan me. What will bring about bestow Shreyas for me? Clearly, specifically speak about it. Don't tell me anything else. Don't tell me fight and win or fight or lose. If you win, you get kingdom. If you lose, you get heaven. Don't tell me all that. I am scorched by the grief of my mind. I am unable to get up. I cannot take back my bow and arrow and hold them in position. Such a person, you should not speak about war, fighting it. Your advice will have to be totally different. It should be such that it cools me, comforts me, appeals to me. It gives me clarity, courage, determination, resolve, stability, poise, confidence, and a sense of inner steadiness and stability. Can you speak to me something like that? And that is why Krishna provided the last attainment of human life. The knowledge of the self, the realization of the self. After having heard him, he says, Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadegam vadanishchitya yena shreyoham apnuyam. Therefore, Arjuna is again very specific in his demand. Tadegam vadanishchitya. Don't make too many statements, Krishna. Don't present before me a number of propositions and ask me to choose or compare and contrast. Simply tell me, ekam, one course of action. Vadanishchitya. Deliberate upon it yourselves. Reflect upon it. Evaluate it yourself. Assess matters. Tell me only one course of action. Yena shreyoham apnuyam. By which I will attain the same shreyas I spoke to you about. I anointed you as my instructor and I sat as a disciple, asking you to teach me as a teacher will a student before him. I completely abandoned my position as a fighter, my position as your brother-in-law. I simply sat as a student. So you should fulfill the task of a teacher. That has not been done. Your Arjuna still remains confused. And do not confuse me again, my dear Krishna. Can you not tell me precisely what should be done by which I will attain my shreyas? Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadegam vadanishchitya yena shreyoham apnuyam. After listening to Krishna, what did Arjuna think? Arjuna's thought is presented in the first verse. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. My dear viewers, listeners, can you understand this verse which Arjuna is saying? Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana. My dear Janardana, if you think, buddhi is superior to activity. What does he mean by that? You presented before me what? The self and the knowledge of the soul. Most of the second chapter is devoted to the discussion and exposition of the immortal, non-acting, ever-free, undecaying, inexhaustible, interminable, unaffected, unburnable, uncuttable, unwettable, undryable soul. Everything is about it. That is knowledge and realization. This knowledge cannot be attained by activity. Activity is from within to without. It is an expression, an outer expression, maybe directed to some outside object. Knowledge is inside. It belongs to the intelligence. So to reach knowledge, action cannot be a means at all. Other than action, what is there? Absorption is there. Action is an expression, a physical expression. The opposite of it will be absorption, as in sleep. In sleep, nobody acts at all. You have been exposing the knowledge of the self. The knowledge is an inner fruition, an inner outcome, if at all. Maximum some contemplation or thoughtfulness is necessary for it. That has nothing to do with this complicated, treacherous war, where 4.5 million warriors are assembled. Only a handful of people will survive. All the others will have to be brutally butchered in the battlefield. What a fierce karma is this? What a fierce. Krishna, have you fought such a war? Have you heard of such a war? You have stopped the chariot in between the two armies, and both armies put together will be 45 lakhs, 4.5 million. And how many are going to survive? Nobody is going to return from this war field alive without victory. Either he will win, and no opponent will be there. A handful of people maximum may win. All the others will have to perish. And that too in a short period of time. How many days was the war fought? 18 days. In 18 days, 4.5 million people have been killed. Even in the modern war, where you have chemical things to fight, bombing and all that, explosion and all that, do you think this death rate is like this? In 18 days, 4.5 million people fought and died. What are you saying? Tat kim karmani ghore mam. You have stopped the chariot in between, right in front of the commanders-in-chief of the opposite camp, asking me to fight. Fight. That means all these people are going to perish. And to a very large extent, I am going to be personally responsible for it. Everybody is looking to me as the hero of the Pandava camp. And it is true also. I have come specially prepared to fight with Pashupadastra, Gandiva, etc. If I don't fight, I don't know what will happen to this war. I am going to fight. But the point is, it is fierce. It is not a pleasant act. It is not like ruling the kingdom. It is not like farming in the farmland. It is shooting, arrows, only to make the opponent fall lifeless. And you are asking me to do it. At the same time, you have made ample references to say that the path of wisdom, understanding the soul, realizing the self, the knowledge of the self, that is everything of life. That is the goal. That is the goal. That is the real treasure. Are not these statements intermixed? You say, Buddhavu Sharanamanvicha. Buddhavu Sharanamanvicha. Take refuge under your buddhi, you say. And people who are looking for results and activity, they are kripanas, stingy people. Do you want me to be a stingy person? Or do you want me to aspire for and strive for self-realization? vyamishrena vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadegam vadanishchitya yena shreyoham apnuyam. Arjuna, Krishna, your Arjuna is not clear. No, no. He is deluded. He is deluded. Don't think he is weak. He is quite strong. He understands what you say, but the confusion still remains. I cannot say Krishna spoke to me clearly, clarifyingly, conclusively. I can only say Krishna spoke to me in a mingled manner, intermixed manner. He has not made his propositions clear. At least this is what it looks to me, he says. I would like you to go through why Arjuna says like this. What did Krishna say in the 2nd chapter? Have you read the 2nd chapter? And is everything clear for you? It cannot be, my dear souls. Spirituality, whatever you may read, ultimately it has to converge. You have to understand finally a single point there. Tell me how distant is God from you? And zero distance. Is he ever separate from you? No. Are you separate from him? No. Still, have you realized him? No. What is this? He is not distant from you, different from you. He is you and you are he. Yet, I have not realized. What is this? What is this? The same trouble is here. He was concluding the Sankhya Yoga. And the last statement he made was, Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayau tado yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papamavapsyasi. Krishna, you spoke about the self. You pointed how great self-knowledge is. For a man who knows the self, there is no question of fighting or causing another to fight. At the same time, what did you tell me? Sukha dukkhe same krutva. In your mind, make sukha and dukkha equal, even, uniform. In the same manner, labha labhau jaya jayau. Labha and alabha, gain and loss. Jaya jayau, victory and defeat. Make these opposites, pairs of opposites, equal in your mind. Then, tato yuddhaya yujyasva. Tato yuddhaya yujyasva. Therefore, get up with a resolution to fight. Naivam papam avapsyasi. You will not incur sin. Was it not a clear call to fight? It is a clear call. But you have said, Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujyasva. A formula you suggested. I agree. But did you stop there? No. No. You continue to speak. And what did you say? You pictured before me a beautiful pedestal. What is that pedestal? Yavan artha udapane sarvadas sampludodage tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Yavan artha udapane sarvadas sampludodage. Imagine a state where all places are flooded with water. Mind you, flooded with water. When do you say flooded with water? Water has completely covered the entire surface of the land. You don't see the land at all. The flood may be 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 12 feet or 20 feet high. Everywhere is water. Nothing is visible. Everything is flooded with water. In such a situation, will anybody like to have a pitcher full of water? Everywhere is water. Why do you want a pitcher full of water? You can take it from wherever you want. And such water, what will you use for? It's all flooded. So you can take it from wherever you want, dip there if you want, take it and put it on your body if you want. Water is available. So it is so much of abundance, fullness. It will be redundant to look for any vessel or a vessel full of water. Tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanada. For an enlightened Brahmin, enlightened means what? A man enlightened with regard to the self, who has gained self-knowledge and realization. Tavan sarveshu vedeshu. All the Vedic injunctions, Vedic ceremonies, the great and famous yagas like Ashwamedha yaga, none of them will be of any use at all. For whom? Brahmanasya vijanadaha. For a Brahmana who has gained sufficient enlightenment. So what is this gain? This gain is not a physical gain. It is not to be had by any physical activity, endeavor, effort. It is a kind of a knowledge fruition. A fruition and fulfillment that takes place in your intelligence level. See, we have the body, but we are not the body. We only have the body. The one who has the body is the I, and that I is different from the body. Now I have said a few sentences. You hear these sentences, think about them, relate them, and finally understand that I is different from the body. So it is a knowledge process and a knowledge outcome. It is not an activity of the body or anything else. After having heard what you have said, what should I try for? I should try for this wonderful state of enlightenment, where I shall be transcending all the Vedic injunctions and prohibitions. I will reach a state of inner abundance, inner fullness, inner superfluity, inner profusion. The statement is quite clear, unambiguous. Then what are you saying? Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalake durbhu mate sangostva karmani. Bah. What shall I say? I immediately felt that I should jump and become like a Brahmanasya vijanada and reach a state of full floodedness. But you say, no, Arjuna, you should not, you cannot, you will not. Your competence is only to pursue activity now. You cannot think of a jnananishta, a full jnananishta. Leaving all physical activity and involvement, you cannot think of sitting in a place, contemplating upon the self, pursuing it inwardly, as a result of which all your mental and intellectual activity will come to an end and you will get immersed in the profusion of your own self. That means I am not competent. When will I become competent? Then why did you mention about this state before me? When you expose a great subject before anybody, will not the listener be influenced by your exposition and will he not want to have it? So when I think of attempting it, you say, you stop me. No, you are not mature. You are not competent. You are not qualified. Remain. and only fight. By fighting, what do I get? All these people will die, that's all. Krishna, my mind is quite sensitive about it. I cannot be indifferent to this warfare and the consequences. You still say, Durena hyavaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya, buddhau sharanamanvicha, kripanaha phalahetavaha. Bah! Again you say, this activity is of no use at all. It is trifling, it is fruitless. Durena hyavaram. It is much Himalayan inferior. Buddhi yoga adu dhananjaya. Buddhi yoga. The yoga of the buddhi, where buddhi alone will be functional and it will attain yoga. Such a yoga buddhi, sharanamanvicha, seek refuge under it. All the others are kripanas. I don't want to suffer from karpanya dosha again, my dear Krishna. My dear viewers, shall I discuss? Are you interested in hearing? Where all Krishna says and why his talk becomes intermixed and mingled for Arjuna. All of you have a feeling, I read Gita. Very good. What very good? And Arjuna, like listener, listening to Krishna, for Arjuna alone Krishna told the Gita, Sanjaya was the only additional person. He was getting confused. So you will be very clear on the first hearing. Cast aside all your delusions. Read more, understand. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite. The world consists of virtue and sin. All your actions fall into the category of either virtue or sin. There is no human being who will not be performing some virtue and along with that some sin. Do you know how human life is born? When virtue and vice equal, then human life is there. When virtue is more, people get born as gods and goddesses. When vice is more, you get born, according to our mythological science, as animals and birds. So human life represents an equal percentage of virtue and vice. Krishna says, Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite. The man whose buddhi is well united with the supreme truth, when he starts reflecting the presence of the immortal, impartial, absolute and imperishable soul, that man, he has no need for either dushkrita or sukrita. He will never run after virtue at all, nor will he be afraid of vice. He transcends both. Let virtue follow him or vice follow him. He has nothing to do with them. He has resolved the mystery around him. The world is no more world. It is fully the transcendental spirit, the spiritual presence. As I always say, water condensed into ice. It is God condensed into objects. All the objects are derivations from the subject, manifestations of the subject. You see the world not 1 millimeter away from the eyeball. Our perception of the world is inside the body, where the perceiver and the perceiving process are. It is never outside the body. So is not the object a manifestation of the subject, a display of the subject? The man of intelligence knows it. The spiritually wise man. When he understands that virtue as well as vice, both are expressions of the transcendental subject, where is the question of seeking sukrita and being afraid of dushkrita? He will live like a child. He will live in a transcendental manner. Everything will have to follow him. Nothing can lead him. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. You are asking me to transcend sukrita and dushkrita by the merit of the intelligence which has got the power to contemplate upon the impersonal, absolute self. You want me to master that yoga, and such a yoga is dexterity in action, you say. I am not able to understand. This is a yoga which works inside the body. The attainment also is inner. And such an attainment, how can it be dexterity in the outside world? Is there any scope for me to turn outside? Will I not remain absorbed within myself? When I asked you about Sthita Prajna, what did you say, Krishna? See, all these are from the second chapter. Yavan Artha Udapane is 46th verse. Karmanyevadhikaraste is the next 47th. Durena Hyevaram Karma is 49. Buddhi Yukto Jahatiha is 50. All these are from the second chapter. I want my listeners, my viewers, to read them, understand them. The time you spend on it, that is the introspection. That is what is going to give you self-realization. You spend time. Let the mind become transformed. Let it be purified. Let the intelligence become sharper and sharper, more and more perceptive. When I asked you about Sthita Prajna, my dear Krishna, did you not give me a clear answer? What did you say? Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogadan atmanyeva atmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadocyade. My dear Krishna, I have to remind you. What did you say? In answer to my Sthita Prajna inquiry, see, you started saying, Prajahati yada kaman. When one renounces, abandons, casts aside, relinquishes all desires pertaining to this world and the other world, even pertaining to liberation and freedom, all desires should be cast aside. Whatever desires spring from the mind, emerge from the mind, shoots from the mind, all of them without distinction should be set aside, and then you must be remaining contented within your own self. Atmanyeva atmana thushtaha sthita prajnastadocyade. My dear Krishna, does it have any relevance to activity in this world, particularly in the war front, taking bow and arrow and discharging sharp arrows? Are you not asking me to abandon all desires and remain sunk within myself, steeped within myself, enjoying the elixir of the self in me, the I? Is it a reference to activity? It is a withdrawal from activity. It is a withdrawal from all interactions. And Satya Sthita Prajna is the greatest person, you say. You also describe the Sthitadhi. But Sthitadhi follows the Sthita Prajna. Did you stop there? No. Your exposition is full of warning. Not merely revelation and exposition, but warning also. What did you say? Verse number 60. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschida indriyani pramadhini haranti prasabham manaha. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramadhini haranti prasabham manaha. Shall I make you recite? Yatato hyapi kaunteya
Yatato hyapi kaunteya
purushasya vipaschitaha
Purushasya vipaschitaha
indriyani pramadhini
Indriyani pramadhini
haranti prasabham manaha.
Haranti prasabham manaha.
My dear Krishna, what did you say? You said senses are your enemy number one. And what is activity? Interaction between the senses and the objects. You are asking me to indulge in activity. At the same time you have told me, senses are the most destructive elements in your life. Even if a person strives very hard spiritually, he has got discrimination, even then, indriyani pramadhini, his senses are very powerful, turbulent, haranti prasabham manaha, they rob forcefully his mind. Do you want my mind to be robbed by remaining in the fierce battlefield and trying to fight? What is your intention? You have spoken well, I have heard well, but I am not clear. What is it that you want me to do? Tani sarvani samyamya yukta sida matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. Tani sarvani samyamya
Tani sarvani samyamya
yukta sida matparaha
Yukta sita matparaha
vashehi yasyendriyani
Vashehi yasyendriyani
tasya prajna pratisthita.
Tasya prajna pratisthita.
The senses are very turbulent. Therefore, what do you want me to do? Tani sarvani samyamya. You want me to regulate, restrain, contain and hold them. Is it activity? Is it an expression? It's a clear call. The senses are dangerous elements in our life. They draw us by force, like a cyclone, the ship. So restrain them. You think of me, your Guru. Vashehi yasya indriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. Only when the senses are sufficiently under one's own control, he can become a sthita prajna. So can I become a sthita prajna by fighting this war? Obviously not. Then why are you asking me to fight? So wherein lies the specificness of your advice? I am not able to make out. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavashyair vidheyatma prasadamathigacchati. This is verse number 64. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu
Ragadvesha viyuktaistu
vishayan indriyaischaran
Vishayan indriyaischaran
atmavashyair vidheyatma
Atmavashyair vidheyatma
prasadamathigacchati.
Prasadamathigacchati.
Krishna, you are wonderful. You are wonderful. Prasadamathigacchati. Oh, he attains placidity of the mind. Placidity of the mind. What is placidity of the mind? Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaishara. He must be able to employ his senses. Without raga and dvesha, supplied by the mind. Ragadveshas constantly arise from the mind and they propel our activities and interactions. This being so, you say that our mind should not be under the grip of the ragadveshas. Then we should employ our senses. Does it not mean a time duration is necessary to plunge into oneself, get into the mind arena, do sufficient austerity and contemplation and tattva vichara there, until at last you feel sure that raga and dvesha have subsided, they will not be trouble, they will not trouble me anymore. My dear Krishna, will it not require a substantial spell of inner contemplation, reformation and refinement? Can anybody take up activity until this is done and accomplished? Atmavashyair vidheyatma. Yes, the senses should be under a controlled mind. How can I get the controlled mind? To control the mind is not an external process. Mind is inside. If any transformation, change, moderation or sublimation has to be brought about in the mind, I have to sit and contemplate, leave activity completely and remain alone. Can it be through fighting? It is not possible. At the same time you say, what? I am not able to understand. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha tasya prajna pratisthita. This is from the Sthita Prajna Prakarana, the last portion of the second chapter, verse number 68. Tasmad yasya mahabaho
Tasmadyasya mahabaho
nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha
indriyabhyabhyaha
tasya prajna pratisthita. Yes, the prajna, the consciousness in the seeker will not become pratisthita, sufficiently established and still in him, until he is able to accomplish what? Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha. You must be able to restrain all your five senses from all the objects of those senses. Nigrihitani. You must be able to restrain them, withdraw them sufficiently, wholesomely. No sensory organ should be left out. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue and the skin. All of them should be sufficiently restrained. Only when they are sufficiently restrained, tasya prajna pratisthita, he will have this sthita prajnata. My dear Krishna, what is it that you are implying by this statement? Am I to dabble in this fight? Or should I sit in a place, if necessary, seeking solitude in a forest and restrain the senses as you say? What is this call? Where is the emphasis? Your Arjuna is not able to understand it. That is why I say, you seem to be giving intermixed and mingled statements. My dear souls, I have never given a talk like this. I have been talking for 66 years. I have never elaborated it in this manner. I may not do it hereafter also. India is a great country. Our culture is impeccable. All of you are extremely fortunate that you are listening to these talks. You belong to this country and you have imbibed this culture. See how he corners Krishna. What is the extent of liberty that he has taken? And how attentively he listened to Krishna. Has any one of you listened to me like this? And see how beautifully, like a parrot, he presents one after the other. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtida. Your statement, Krishna, does not give me any scope for activity at all, especially something like this bloody war, bloodful war. You are my charioteer. Every arrow that I am going to discharge will be standing on your chariot, driven by you. So you are more responsible for my fight than I myself am. Can this Tirtha Prajnata be attained by this treacherous war and involvement in it? How can I understand it? I asked you for Shreyas and you are supposed to give me Shreyas. Show me the way for it. What is that way? I am not able to get at it. Did you not tell me? Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam
Yanisha sarvabhutanam
Tasyam Jagarti Samyami
Tasyam jagarti samyami
Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani
Yasyam jagrati bhutani
Sanisha Pashyato Mune.
Sanisha pashyato mune.
Oh, this is the thunder of Krishna's statement, the second chapter. He contrasts the worldly people and the spiritual people like darkness, night and day. Ya nisha sarva bhutana tasyam jagarti samyami. The man of spiritual restraint wakes up where and when ordinary people consider that it is night. They see nothing there. Everything is dark. That is where the knowledgeable man wakes up and he finds all the splendor, glory, freedom, fullness, abundance, sufficiency. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. Where ordinary people are awake, they see the sensory world, get attracted to the sensory objects, all are perishable, then suffering, getting tormented, despondent, grief-stricken. There, the knower of truth takes no interest at all. His interest is in the sleeping self. Others' interest is in the wakeful self. So much of difference. So do you want me to continue in the darkness? Or do you want me to be enlightened? Fighting this war is certainly running about in darkness. Leaving it and trying to contemplate and penetrate into one's own inner domain, that is enlightenment. Now you have presented all these propositions, my dear Krishna, and then you are asking me to fight. No, no, no. I want more clarification. You have to speak to me more clearly and legibly so that I will understand the matter. Do you know what this means? This means Arjuna is put into introspection. How beautifully he speaks. And Krishna is going to answer him. And by his answer, what is happening? The introspection is further ablaze. And through a process of introspection, the mind will be purified, the intelligence will be sharpened, it will become more and more perceptive, and enlightenment will dawn. What a beautiful statement are all these. We have not chanted the first two verses of the third chapter. The first itself is a question. That question has led to the third chapter. In the 18th chapter also, Arjuna raises a question. That question is very singular. That points the genesis and also the finale of Bhagavad Gita. What does he say? Sannyasasya mahabaho tattvamichhami vedidum Tyagasya ja hrishikesha pruthakkeshi nishudana. He says, I want to know the essence of Tyaga and Sannyasa. My dear viewers, do you know, Bhagavad Gita discusses only Tyaga and Sannyasa. What does Bhagavad Gita do? It discusses, elaborates, explains, enlightens, analyzes, evaluates. That process of evaluation itself becomes an introspection, and that introspection purifies, involves the mind and intelligence and purifies it. We will stop after chanting the first two verses, which we did not do earlier. Jayasi chet karmanaste
Jayasi chet karmanaste
Mata buddhir janardana
Mata buddhir janardana
Tatkim karmani ghore mam
Tatkim karmani ghore mam
Niyojayasi keshava
Niyojayasi keshava
Vyamishrene vakyena
Vyamishreneva vakyena
Buddhim mohayasiva me
Buddhim mohayasiva me
Tadekam vadanishchitya
Tadekam vadanishchitya
Yena shreyohamapnuyam
Yena shreyohamapnuyam
Yena shreyohamapnuyam
Yena shreyohamapnuyam.
This literally means Arjuna wants Krishna to clarify matters for him. So he should expose the truth. By listening to the exposition, absorbing it, introspecting over it, Arjuna will attain the truth. Actually, in the 2.5 hour dialogue that transpired in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, do you know what happened? Everything happened only by Arjuna's listening to Krishna. He did not do anything at all. Only listen to. What was he doing? He was sitting on the chariot, cross-legged, looking at Krishna. Krishna was standing, holding the reins of the horses. All that Arjuna did was, he heard Krishna. That hearing was an introspection for him. Introspection is something like churning curd with a churning rod. The curd gets churned until at last the butter is separated and it starts flowing. It starts floating on the top. Similarly, this will also, Kaivalya Navanita will follow. The last question of Arjuna is Sannyasa and Thiaga. So the entire Gita is what? It instills, generates, confirms, reinforces, deepens, enriches that sannyasa in you. Sannyasa means what? Renunciation. What is that renunciation? Renunciation of the notion that I am the body. You are not the body. You only have a body. Even that you don't have. You only have a notion that I have a body. If you have a body, how could you sleep without the body? 8 hours of the day you slept, you sleep, and no body is there for you in your experience. This body is there only in your wakefulness. It is not there in your sleep. So tell me whether the body is or is not. Even if it ceases to exist for 1 minute or 1 second, can I call it existence? Existent? So, renunciation of the body idea, renunciation of the possessiveness, renunciation of the ego, renunciation of the desire. This is what is called sannyasa. Sannyasa is inner renunciation. Inner renunciation. You cannot renounce anything in the outside world. Suppose I renounce, I throw away this book. It will go away from here and lies at some other place. If you leave your house, does the house disappear? You go away from the house remains where it is. So what have you renounced? What do you mean by renunciation? On the other hand, you look into your own mind, and if false notions are renounced, the false notions will not be there. So the disappearance is possible only in the mind level, not in the physical level. All the objects will continue to be in the earth because of earth's gravity. Nothing will go away from here. But everything inside your mind will certainly go away. That is what that sannyasa and thiaga are. That is what Arjuna got. He was made to attain by the Bhagavad Gita exposition. I hope something at least must have struck you from the discussion. Let me stop. Samvedya varjitamanuttamamekamadhyam samvidpadam vikalanam kalayan mahatman hridyeva tishtha kalanarihita kriyam tu kurvan agartrapadamehitya samodida shri kurvan agartrapadamehitya samodida shri Hari 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 Om Tats. We shall have the conclusional Omkara recitation jointly. Hari Om Tas.